Welcome to A-Level English Literature. My name is Emma Childs and I am the coordinator for A-Level Literature. Also teaching on the course are Mrs. Watson and Mr. Ward. Going into next year it will be Mrs. Watson who will be taking the Year 12 cohort, but currently it's Mr. Ward. So just a little look at our summer results from the last couple of years. Obviously it was a bit of a funny year last year, but we got 100% A star to C, which was incredible. And the year before we got 92% A star to C, so we get some really good results in English literature. Okay, so the first thing you need to think about is why you want to study A-level literature, and you may already have some ideas. It might be that you really enjoy studying literature, but there are many other reasons why this is a really good course to study. So firstly, it's a highly regarded qualification. If you take literature, people think that you have a really good standard of education. It shows that you are able to write essays effectively. It shows that you're able to research effectively. It shows that you're able to debate and evaluate, and they're all really high-level skills that universities ask for as well as employment. It's also a facilitating subject for some courses. So, for example, law degrees might ask for you to have studied English literature for the reasons that I mentioned before, in that it equips you with a lot of skills that are necessary for studying other subjects. So it's interesting and engaging. Obviously, I'm going to say that because I teach it and I love it, but it is a wide range of literature that is studied and a wide range of genres and a wide range of time periods. So if you're interested in reading, then this is a really good course for you to get into. We study, as I said, a wide range of genres. So the exams, which I'll go into in a bit, cover a lot of different genres and a lot of different time periods. And as I mentioned before, you will get a large range of transferable skills. You'll hone the ones that you've already started practicing through GCSE, and you'll also bring in a lot deeper thinking and a lot of those higher level skills which are really important for progressing to university and beyond. So what you will study. So the first thing you study when you come into Year 12 is theory. We don't have to study theory, it's not part of the course, but we think that this is a really important thing, not only for you to engage with the literature that you're studying, but also to help you progress on to university. It gives you the edge over other students who may not have studied critical theory before. So these different critical theorists you will look at that you would possibly study at undergraduate level. So actually we're pushing you quite hard as soon as you enter your A-levels in Year 12. So the first theory we study is feminist theory, and we look at how feminist critics view texts from a feminist perspective, and we explore the history of feminism alongside that as well. We also study queer theory, so thinking about how you can apply a queer theory lens to the text that we're looking at. So for example, is Iago a horrible person, or is he just madly in love with Othello, and is that why he acts out? Is that why he hates women quite so much? So it brings a really interesting look into the text that we're studying. We also look at Marxism. So you will have studied that if you did an Inspector Calls and thought about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So we think about how class makes a big difference to the texts that are being studied, whether they're written from that perspective or whether they're about characters from that perspective. And then finally, we look at cross-cultural studies. So we think about how texts are influenced by the context in which they are produced and the context in which they are read. So we think about colonialism and post-colonialism and those theories of thought. So thinking about what you will study. So the first thing you will study is drama, and that's the first exam paper, paper 1. For drama, you will study Othello by Shakespeare, A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. The thing that's really good about the edXL syllabus, which we switched to 2 years ago, is that all of the examinations are open book. And if you've studied GCSE, then you have experienced the torture of closed book exams where you are expected to remember the whole text. You will not have to do that for literature. You just get to study the book, you get to understand it really well, and then you get to take the book in the exam with you. Okay. So the drama exam is a 2.25 hour exam that is open book, as I said, and it has 2 questions. The first question is a question about Othello, and you get to apply critical theory to that. And then the second question is a question about Streetcar Named Desire. So really straightforward exams, nothing to get too het up about or too confused about. Then we study prose. So we have chosen the Gothic avenue for prose. So you will study The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde and Dracula by Bram Stoker. So two really good Victorian texts with a lot in them, a lot of critical theory to apply to them. Really brilliant books if you haven't already read them. So this is a very short exam because it's a comparative question, so you have to compare Dorian Gray with Dracula. It's a 1.25 hour examinations. They love their quarter-hour parts of the examinations in it at Excel. So you just compare a theme from the novels. So for example, you might compare how setting is used or how villains are presented in the novels. Thirdly, you study poetry. I know there are probably going to be a few eye rolls with the poetry. It's always the least popular of our papers, but actually this is really engaging stuff. So we've got Rossetti. She's a Victorian poet, and the reason why we chose her is because a lot of the stuff that you learn when you're studying Dracula and Dorian Gray, you can transfer straight away over to Rossetti, so you have a really good contextual knowledge. And then you study an anthology of poems from the 20th and 21st century. So you get a much more up-to-date look at poetry, which perhaps you haven't done up to now. So this is a 2.25 hour examination like the drama paper. It's one essay comparing an unseen poem with an anthology poem. So that would be the poems of the decade. So they give you one, and then you can take your anthology in and compare it with another one. And then you get one essay question on Rossetti. So again, really straightforward examinations. Nothing is surprising. The format doesn't change, and that means that you can revise really effectively because you'll know exactly what you're being expected to do. And then probably the best part of the course is the non-exam assessment. So this is the part where you get to choose what you want to do. So you have to write one comparative essay. It's between 2,000 and 3,000 words, and it can be any two texts of your choice. So you choose the theme, and then you choose the books around it. So for example, you could look at horror and think about how horror is presented in two different texts. So for example, American Psycho and Stephen King novels. You can look at how race is presented in two different texts. You can look at oppressive societies and how they're presented in text. You can look at feminism, absolutely anything you like. And please don't think that you just get chucked out into the world and do all this by yourself. We do an introductory unit where we show you how to compare texts, and then you get to work independently with supervision from your supervisor. Okay. So typically a year 12 calendar looks like the following. So the first 4 weeks is kind of our introduction period where we get you used to A-level study, we prepare you for what our expectations are on the rest of the course, and this is where we introduce critical theory to you. So the things I mentioned before, the feminist theory, the queer theory, and we introduce you to what tragedy is, what the Gothic is, lots of different theoretical criticism that you'll need for the rest of the course. This will give you a really good idea of whether literature is something that you really want to study. And then in the autumn term, you start A Streetcar Named Desire with me, and then with Mrs. Watson, you will study Dracula and A Portrait of Dorian Gray. In the spring term, you'll carry on studying Dracula and A Portrait of Dorian Gray with Mrs. Watson because those are quite substantial novels and you'll need a lot of time to go over those in detail. And then with me, we'll start the Rossetti collection, so that's poetry. And then after Easter, we start the non-exam assessment. So we introduce you to the key things that you'll be looking for, we show you how to do it, and then we let you choose what you want to do and we support you through that. So we do it really early because it gives you a lot of time to get your drafts done. The final draft is due in January of the following year, but we think it's really important to get the NEA out of the way so that you can focus on revising for your exams, and that's why we've decided to structure it that way. So the support's available. So we have weekly drop-in sessions. These obviously are suspended at the moment because of COVID and we can't have people hanging around school, but usually we offer drop-in sessions where you can come and you can speak to either teacher about things that are bothering you or things you need clarification with. But alongside that, the English literature team are really good at offering time to support you after school and during breaks and those kinds of things as well. We have Office 365, and this year obviously we're using Teams quite broadly, so that will help you in terms of accessing lessons that you may have missed or you may need to go over again, or contacting other students on the course to ask for advice, or even contacting one of your English teachers. We have a mentoring program in which Year 13 students coach Year 12 students. Obviously they've been through it before, they know what's expected, and they can give you best advice, and they can usually do it in a way that is more accessible to you than perhaps a teacher could. We provide all of our own revision resources. Obviously we also show you ones that you can buy that are really good, but we produce all of our own so that they're really tailored to what you need to learn and what maybe your weaknesses are on the course. And then the library, when it's available, has a really good selection of wider reading resources. A few years ago we bought in loads of books that we needed for our course, so there's loads of critical theory in there. There are books and revision guides on all of the texts that you're studying as well, so it's really well resourced. Opportunities: we, as much as we can and when we can, have visiting lecturers in. So we've had lecturers in from University of Exeter and the University of Plymouth, just to give our students that undergraduate level knowledge that will push them that bit further for the top grades. We've had authors in before to help us understand about the craft of writing a novel, because that helps with understanding why things are the way that they are. Our mentoring program that you can get our mentoring program that you can get involved in when you're in Year 13. And we do theatre visits and trips. We've been really lucky that most of the texts we've studied so far have had an appearance at the theatre. So when we can, we always try and get onto theatre trips if they're relevant. So now that you've had all of the information, you need to start thinking about whether this is the right course for you. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can contact me, or you can contact Mrs. Watson or Mr. Ward, or you can speak to any of the students who have studied literature before. I know they'll be more than willing to talk to you and give you an honest opinion about what literature is like. So you need to love reading to do this course. Some students are surprised that they are expected to read, and you are expected to read, and it's a lot to read, and they're not always books that you may have picked up yourself, but you are expected to read them and know the books really, really well. You need to enjoy exploring and discussing interpretations and challenging conventional ones. Literature lessons aren't quiet lessons. It isn't all of us sitting around reading a book. It's us challenging each other's opinions. It's us having opinions on books and maybe not always agreeing on them, and being able to explore those opinions. So you need to be able to write analytically. Obviously the work you're doing in GCSE at the moment will prepare you more than adequately for A-level literature. You need to be organised and manage time. So the workload is a lot, but it's a lot for all A-level subjects. So you need to make sure that you start managing your time and that you are able to compartmentalise what you need to do and come up with schedules. And you also need to have achieved a good grade in English literature. So our baseline is a 4, but obviously the higher you get, the easier you will most likely find A-level literature. So that's pretty much everything you need to think about when you're deciding whether you want to do literature or not. We have texts available that you can read if you're not sure about whether those are the texts you want to explore. But like I said, talk to me, talk to Mr. Ward, talk to Mrs. Watson, and talk to any of the students who have explored this subject. And then hopefully we'll see you for your induction lesson at the end of the year if you decide to take literature. And yeah, enjoy.